Hi everyone. So this is the KX2, and what I want to do is I want to connect my Raspberry Pi to the KX2 and show you some software configuration on the Raspberry Pi, as well what type of cables to connect to the KX2, and a few best practices that I've learned along the way. Okay, first thing probably we want to do is turn it off. So this is off. And here I have a Raspberry Pi, Raspberry Pi 3. You can use a 4 if you want. But, you know, every Raspberry Pi with its own operating system, depending on, you know, which flavor of Raspbian you put, you'll find different configurations and different workarounds. Let's put it that way. It can be frustrating to work with these devices because when you look at a YouTube video and they're configuring the Raspberry Pi a certain way, you'll find that sometimes the drivers are not the same. This one in particular that I'm using, the OS is the OS that you get from the Raspberry Pi organization. So Raspbian, and I think it's called Raspberry Pi OS now or something. But it's not a different flavor. You know, it's not because one of the great things about Linux is that you can configure it a certain way. So keep that in mind when you're looking at this demonstration. Right now, you need power, so that's definitely something that you'll need. And you might need a GPS dongle. When you're in the field, a lot of the times, you know, you don't have your phone, or you don't have a way to determine the time, or you forget to set the time on the Raspberry Pi. So a good thing is to have one of these GPS dongles to give you the proper time. There's more configuration, of course, in doing that, but it's a time saver. I have an extension with some, you know, ferrite beads for the signal not to be interfered. It tends to help. The extension I need because this dongle in particular, it's pretty wide and it doesn't really fit very nice. Some people will tear the plastic and just put that in there, but I'd rather have the plastic to protect it a little bit. Then, Elecraft sells a USB cable so that you can connect to a computer, and that cable, of course, you can connect to your, in this case, your Elecraft. So they provide that for you. So here is the USB cable connected to one of the USB plugs, and then this one, the other end, that looks like a stereo plug, that goes into the ACC. It's right here. So it goes there. Perfect. And the next thing I have here, one of the reasons why I have this thing turned on is because the GPS dongle takes a little while when you're indoors. It needs to be near a window. But anyway, the next thing I want to talk to you about is the Sabrent. Let me see, does it say Sabrent? It's really hard to see, but it says right there, the Sabrent. Sabrent is an external sound card. The sound card is just this little piece right here. It's pretty amazing. This right here is connected to an extension again with a bead for any interference that I might pick up. The Sabrent is going to be helpful because it will coordinate the sound that's coming out and coming in from the rig. Now, this is kind of important. They're color-coded, and you got to put the right color to the right plug on your KX2. Pink, right, goes to phone. P for pink, P for phone. So this pink one will go to the phones right here. And then the other one must go into the mic. Okay. Mic jack. Okay. So that's great. We got that going. We're going to put the antenna on. You might need an adapter for BNC. You probably already know that. Okay, and then we're going to turn it on. Cool. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to configure the software inside of the Raspberry Pi. Now, one way to do that is to connect a monitor so that you can view the software from the Raspberry Pi, or you can VPN to the Raspberry Pi through another machine or a tablet. And that's what you usually do. If you're in the field, you bring your laptop, which has the screen. It creates a portal to your Raspberry Pi so you can see what's going on in there. And then you configure the Raspberry Pi that way. Or you can use your iPad or an Android or even a Fire tablet so that you can view what's going on, because you need to not only configure the software like JSA call or WSJT-X for FT8, but you need to view what's going on in the bands. Okay, so make sure you configure the rig so that it's able to communicate. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. You can watch my other video on how I did that. So the next thing we want to do is let's log into the Raspberry Pi. So this is a Mac running VNC, and it's communicating to the Raspberry Pi. You can configure it with a cable or wireless. In this case, it's wireless. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to run the WSJTX software, and the base installation of Raspberry Pi doesn't have the WSJTX software, so you're going to have to install that. And because it's a Raspberry Pi 3, it takes a little while for it to load. But price performance wise, it's worth every penny. It's not very expensive, it's inexpensive, the hardware, and it's very portable. You can take it in the field in many places with it. And it's not that power hungry either. You can run it through a battery. Okay, the first time you run a WSJTX, it's going to give you a bunch of errors, and that's because you haven't configured the software. So let's do that. Let's go to File and go to Settings. And in most videos, you'll see that a lot of these settings are the same, and I'll give you an idea of what is usually changed. Remember, this is specific for the Raspberry Pi. You got to put your call sign and your grid. And there might be some other things here like blank lines between decoding and text messages to RF frequency window. Double click on call sets TX to be enabled, disable TX after sending 73. There's a few. There might be other things here that you might want to check, but those are the ones that I use. You got to click on radio here, and then this is where you choose the KX2. This right here is the thing that takes a long time, and the frustration will go up the roof. You got to find and choose the right driver. Now, when I installed the Raspberry Pi OS on the Raspberry Pi machine, the software seemed to be, or the drivers seem to be included. Best thing to do is to turn on the radio first, then turn on the Raspberry Pi. There might be some type of communication going on in there. And then when you are here, hopefully you'll see DVTTY USB 0. Now, if it's not there, you might have to choose something else. But fortunately, that was there. Sometimes you have to reboot it. On the Raspberry Pi, do it again. Sometimes you have to update the Raspberry Pi because it might not have the proper software. It's a real pain in the behind. But that is usually, you have to choose that and for it to properly work. And then you can see the baud rate is 38,400, which we did on the KX2. Well, in my previous video, but it's already set. I have 8 for the data bit, 2 for the stop bit. Handshake, I have none. Nothing on DTR, nothing on RTS. CAT, that's important. And then mode is data. Split operation, none. Split operation might be suggested, but I haven't really worked on this. Meaning it'll transmit at a different frequency. It's probably best practice to do that, but I have it at none. Okay, don't do the test yet. Go to audio. This is also a pain in the behind. Depending on, again, the flavor of Raspberry Pi that you put in there, you're going to get different drivers for the sound card. The Sabrent, the cool thing about the Sabrent, which is right here, this guy. The Sabrent is, will load some software, or not load, but the Raspberry Pi knows the Sabrent when it's connected to it. There we go, that's better. And it will recognize that. All this is not automatically done. You have to install these pieces of software separately and configure them. It's not too hard. There are some videos out there that demonstrate that. And that's the hard part, is that there's so many different videos, so different configurations, that a lot of the times you're just pulling your hair out and you don't want to do it. But there's a common theme to these videos, is that a lot of the times there's only 2 drivers that work. And one of them is HW card, and the other one is the plug HW. This is the one that the KX2 likes, so we're going to keep it there. And we're going to have both of them are HW card, and then we're going to click on both over here. Now, again, depending on the flavor of your machine, the software that you put in, this will probably change. But like I mentioned before, the OS that comes with the Raspberry Pi, or the organization, and I'll put a link on the bottom, that is the software that I used. Because if you use a different type of OS that other people have compiled for you, these might not be available for you. Okay, and you can go to reporting, prompt me to log QSO if you want. You can go to color, and change the color if you want. I like to use blue instead of red when I transmit. Okay, go to radio, and then click on test. This should pop up, and that's, again, you're doing this a lot. The first time you're doing it, the first time you're figuring out, this needs to pop up, and you click on it, and it should turn red. And then also your KX2 should show you that you're transmitting. Okay, you click OK, and hopefully there are no errors. And if there is, you got to go on the web trying to see what it is that, what's going on. Okay, now, right now, it's receiving some data. So let's look at the rig here. Sometimes when the data is not spread out on this waterfall that you see here, you might have to use the fill button here and then adjust the width to 4 and then also to center it. But right now it's not acting up the right colors, right? Pink for phone, the other one goes to the mic. That's a possibility. Another thing that maybe you're not getting any data over here is you're not receiving the proper amount of signal. One other thing too that I kind of forgot, and because this is already configured, if you right click on the icon, the speaker icon for the outputs and the inputs, it needs to be a USB device. I forgot to tell you that. And then to configure, right, if you go over here, the output, same thing for the input. If you click on configure the device, make sure you enable both. Put them on like almost 50% for the speaker and the mic. And then the capture, put in halfway for enabled. And then here on the auto gain playback, make sure it's not selected. And this is for the output. And you also have one for the input, but I think it's the same. It says input, and I think it does it automatically when you do one. But level, enable here, capture, halfway, options. Make sure you uncheck that. Okay, that's important too. So this right here, this is the data that's coming in by sound. This needs to be, I think it's recommended that it needs to be at 30 dB. 30 dB when only noise is present. And to dial it down or dial it up, use the AF. So if I dial this all the way to 0, you can see that you have nothing coming in. And if you dial it up too much, it gets too hot. 17, 18, look at that. We don't want to burn it out either. You go too high, it's going to get into the red, and you don't want that. So let's lower that down. It's pretty good where it was. About, I don't know, 7, maybe less, 6. I like to keep it at 40. So you can see it says 5 or 6. Maybe lower, 3. And one thing about this, it's not locked. When when it's all live, it's you can't really touch that, or else it's very sensitive. There we go. Okay, so it looks like things are coming in. You got to make sure that the antenna is tuned. I have a half-wave end-fed that's tuned already, but if your antenna is not tuned, that's important. That needs to be, make sure that that's ready to go. Of course, it needs to be connected. That's something that sometimes we forget to do. The mic button. If you press the mic button, you'll get the ALC meter. That's really important to move forward. Data also, right? You have different modes, but data needs to be turned on, and then if you press data again, it needs to say data A. So those things, if you watch the video that I did for the configuration on this, I go into more details on some of the settings. So far, it looks like I'm receiving data and information. One of the last things that you need to double check is you got to press and hold on the mic button and make sure that the wattage is close to 5. If you have a 0 watts, it's still going to transmit and you're going to see a signal on the ALC and you're thinking, well, everything's working fine. Well, if you have no watts on, it's not going to work. Don't put it on 10 watts. It's going to get too warm very quickly. And then press the mic button down. Now you see that I have a heat sink here to dissipate the heat. This thing does get warm when it's cranking out the signals. Okay, so I got my wattage. Everything looks okay. The next thing also on the mic here, mic gain, you gotta make sure that it's not at 37 or something, because that's usually, you use it that high when you speak on SSB. So you should lower it down to around 17 or so, because when you transmit, you're going to look at the ALC and see how high it is. You could do that technically by clicking on Tune. So if you click on Tune, we'll see if the ALC comes up. There it is. Okay, so it has 3 bars. Let's lower it down with the mic. See, it goes down. Some people say it's good to keep it below. Some people say it's good above. For me, I like to keep it like 3 bars, 2 bars, because for whatever reason, sometimes it doesn't work very well if it's too low. And if you watch some other videos on this, some people believe it's key. Okay, and the only reason why I'm able to see this, remember, if you press mic down and mic again, that gives you the ALC. Okay, so I'm getting a signal. ALC seems to be okay. I think that's it. I think we're ready to go. So, of course, you get to see all the CQs that are coming in. You can click on only CQs if you want. We can do that. And when you're ready, you double click on the for the contact. We'll just wait. Over here, down here, you can see every 15 seconds it cycles. So we'll wait until a new 15 seconds come up, and we'll double click on something. And we gotta keep an eye on certain things to make, this is the first time doing it. Okay, we're gonna click this that has -4 dB, hopefully. KG7. Nope, I didn't choose the right one, did I? I chose the one, the JA. All right, that's fine. So I clicked on it, and I should have been paying attention to the ALC. So it's going to cycle again. Hopefully it did transmit. You can see it's enabled. So they weren't able to hear me. Now I'm transmitting again. I can see it over here. It's transmitting. ALC is doing pretty good. I'm wondering if J means Japan. It's possible. After a little while, depending on your, how long you wanna keep this up, 3-4 times contacting them. So I'm gonna stop that. Oh no, I'm gonna enable it then. They did accept. See, they came back. Okay, well, let's see if this works. All right. I think I stopped it midway. We'll see if they're coming back. We can uncheck this to see what's going on with the band. It did work. Look at that. Okay. That's great. See that? All right. So a couple of things to keep in mind. So I'm going to log this in. Is making sure the time is correct. The time is very crucial, and you can always configure the machine manually if you need to. the um, the spread of the data here, right? The signals that are coming in, they need to be spread out, not clumped like you see over here on the left. But if they're not spread out, it might be because the fill, you need to readjust it again. That's important. The power, sometimes when you are doing this, you're not, you don't have enough wattage. You might be at 0. So 5 is recommended. Another thing to keep an eye on also, if you click on display here, keep an eye on the temperature. As you do this more and more, you're revving this up for more contacts, the temperature will go up, and eventually it gets to a point where it's too warm and it's going to throttle down automatically. Having a heatsink does help, but if you're in a room that is warm during the summer, this will help a little bit, but you might not be very happy with it because you need to blow air on this. You need to constantly keep it cool. But if you're in the field, you want to do a few contacts, it should be readily easy to do, and the temperature shouldn't bother you in terms of performance. Of course, having the proper antenna, making sure it's tuned. There's so many things that need to be adjusted, and I'll probably do a video one day on some of the things that I've learned in different rigs. But hopefully, this gives you a sense of how to utilize your Raspberry Pi to the KX2. It's not a very easy process when you start. There's a lot of things that you got to figure out. The Sabrent and its configuration and software. The dongle for the GPS and how to configure that. Those things are not easy. You can get a special package for the Raspberry Pi that kind of deals with those issues, but a lot of the times those are so specifically tuned that a lot of the times you're not sure how to configure it because it's already configured for you. Another thing too to take into consideration is that when you're in the field, there is no internet, so this doesn't automatically get in the time. When we talked about also to get the dongle, but because there's no internet in the field, using a tablet for wireless won't work. So you have to reconfigure it so this will be a hotspot, and you can do that. There's some good internet YouTube tutorials on how to create this to be a hotspot. When that's a hotspot, then your tablet computer can talk to it, and then you can view the screen like you're viewing right now. So a lot of things can go wrong, but a lot of things, when they do go right, they work perfectly. And when you have it all set up, you are ready to go. One thing that I didn't mention in this video, and I know I mentioned it before, when you configure the rig, before you put it into digital mode, make sure you write down all the configurations that you are changing as the default, so if things don't work out, you can always change it to what you had it before. Okay, I hope that was informative, useful. If you have any questions, please put them on at the bottom of this video. Maybe we can help each other out if we have a particular question that we want to ask. If you enjoyed this video, if it was informative for you, please consider subscribing. Please give me a thumbs up. And I hope you're safe. And hopefully we'll see you in the field. So my name is Frank, KN6BST. All right, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.